Here, let's talk about KTMs.
Okay, so here we are then. We are up in Saltash, right on the edge of Cornwall, almost in Devon. We're at JD Racing, KTM franchise, and today I'm going to be taking out the 1290 Super Adventure R, which is a brand spanking new bike, only registered a few weeks ago, on an 18 plate. And we're going to see how this one goes. This has got the TFT screen that is can be linked to a phone for your GPS. I think there must be a ship leaving Plymouth. Sound like that. And we're going to take it out for a ride and get a little chat on it and see how it goes. Okay, so here we are. Sat astride the beast. What a really nice bike this is. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Obviously, we're going to talk about how the bike rides and what we're expecting from it. But I'm just going to go through this little screen thing here because you'll love this. Look at this when the screen comes up. Ready to race. How cool is that? So it's looking at the screen. It's got a digital Rev Counter. Got the speed that shows here, and up in the top right hand corner it tells you what gear you're on, tells you what your trip mileage is. This bike's only done 115 miles. It's got a clock, got the temperature, fuel range, and all sorts of things like this. And on this side, left hand side here, you've got cruise control, flashing headlight, lights are digital, LED. You've got a screen option you can go through here. Lots of things to look at, and this is trying to find my actual telephone. To buy the app to link your GPS to your telephone GPS sat nav to the TFT screen, you have to buy an app which costs £8. The whole thing can be retrofitted, so if you've already got a bike that's got a TFT screen on, you can bring it in and they'll retrofit it. For the sat nav app if you want, and then you just buy the app for your bike, and obviously it works on a Bluetooth thing, gives you maps, all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty good. There's one issue that we've been told about with the TFT screen is if you want to change music, if you've got music playing in your helmet and you want to change the music, you have to go through this long-winded affair of scrolling through the menus to try and change the music in the music menu, rather than just being able to press a button or flick it on or something. See, this bike is 160 brake horsepower, has a seat height of 890. You can buy a load seat for it. 23 litre tank, 140 Newton meters of torque or whatever it is. Toby will put that on the screen. Newton somethings, and it's really nice. I like it. Typical KTM, isn't it? It's designed for riding. Initial impression is on this bike is the seat is really hard. Feels comfortable. It feels nice, but quite narrow. It's like a caged beast. This, you can feel it. I'm in first gear, 8 miles an hour, and it's just like, oh, let me go, let me go. Standard indicator switches, as we find on most bikes now. Everyone's gone over to them, even BMW have gone over. It's just a bit nadgery getting out of the KTM workshop. Coming to a series of roundabouts. Look at that beast over there. Come to a series of roundabouts and everybody just wants to stop. Apparently this has been improved to improve traffic flow, but it doesn't appear to be. And poor old Toby there, getting cut out by a lady who just stopped on the roundabout for some reason. For those of you who watched my review on the GS Adventure with the TFT screen, I made sure that this hasn't got a plastic screen on it covering it, because I am a Muppet and things like that will confuse me. So this is completely as it would be, as you would expect it to be. So the Super R I'm riding here is quite a nice bike. It's more of an, I would say, an off-road based bike. It's not got the big touring screen on. It's got a very small screen that can be adjusted. It's actually on its highest setting now, which is very low. I'm only doing 30 miles an hour, so we'll see how much, you know, if we get any issues with buffeting and things like that. It's a very throaty engine it's got, typical KTM roar to it. Sounds lovely, very throbby. You can tell it's the first sunny day we've had for a while. Loads of bikes out. Surprisingly, the screen is quite small, but it is giving quite a bit of protection at the moment. And it might just be the size of the screen. It might just be the fact that the tank, which is a 23-litre tank, and is, if you imagine, for those of you who ride GSs and GS Adventures, is that kind of shape, so you get protection from that as well. And in front of you, just by the front forks, usually you get that big gap where wind gets funneled up through. For those of you who've ridden a 660 Tenere Yamaha, you'll know what I mean. There's a huge hole in front of you. Well, this hasn't got that much of a hole, and it's typical KTM. It's all nice and smooth and looked after, and maybe the wind is being channeled away from me. There's a little bit on the shoulders, but apart from that, the screen's doing a reasonable job, I would think. And it's a split screen, so it's only the top part that moves for adjustment, and it has got a quick shift on it. Either that or I've just broken the bike. This is awesome. You know, they don't mess about, KTM. When it says on the screen when it starts up, ready to race, they're being completely serious about it. It's quite a tall bike, 890. It doesn't feel heavy, because it is a heavy bike. It's 250 kilos. I mean, most bikes aren't light anymore now. And these adventure type bikes tend to be weightier as well. So this feels quite light. It's very manoeuvrable. They're quite nimble. Wing mirrors are quite angular, but they give a good field of view once you adjust them properly. And it's about time motorbike manufacturers started putting wing mirrors on where you can actually see behind it. There's nothing worse, is there, than having a set of wing mirrors, and no matter what you do, all you can see is your elbows or your shoulder. How do you expect people to see behind you? I will check the horn. Oh my word. So let's gripe about the horn then. How are you going to warn somebody when you've got little more than a squeak? Put bigger horns on, motor manufacturers. There's a cruise control on the left hand switch cluster. It's quite simple. If you think of some bikes, they look really complicated, but this one looks quite easy enough to work its way through. There's a 4-point menu switch there that you can manoeuvre your way through the menu, and I have to say the menu is a little bit complicated. You need to spend a bit of time looking at it. The actual ride itself is not a particularly comfy ride. We'll have a look through the settings and see if you can I'm sure you can adjust it to, you know, comfort or normal or hard. This seems like it's got it on the hard setting, but that might just be the setup of the bike itself anyway. It does feel a little bit hard, which, if you're on a long journey, may be an issue. But we'll go and I'll have a look through that when we stop and do a bit of a review on it. And so, because it feels very hard, it feels a bit taut is probably a way to describe it. The actual ride of the bike is very, very taut, but it's lovely. And if we compare this screen to the BMW TFT screen, I think this is probably slightly better. It's a different, nicer colour anyway. The white is easy to read. You can buy the standard luggage for this bike. This one doesn't come with the floating luggage, which KTM do so well. This has just got the rigid stuff, so, but it can be fitted as an extra if you want the floating luggage, which is basically a system that allows the luggage to vibrate as the bike is going along. But I must say, we looked at the luggage that was fitted on the bike in the showroom, and because of the size of the exhaust and the shape of the exhaust, they've got like a normal size, if you imagine, probably about a 45 litre box on the left hand side, and on the right hand side it might be something down to about 30 litres, because they've got this huge slice of it that has to be taken out for the exhaust, which is a bit disappointing really. Obviously they're trying to keep the bike a uniform width and balanced, but if you're making a bike, in my opinion, that is supposed to be an adventure bike, people are going to be touring with it, maybe taking it off-road, why would you make something that's going to restrict you so much on your luggage capability? Because people are obviously going to be carrying luggage. You can fit a top box on the rack at the back, and I know that KTM do quite a large one, which is pretty cool. So JD Racing have very kindly lent us these bikes to do a review on it, and we're hopefully going to come up and do a little bit of green laning with them in the future, which would be quite nice. And they've got an electric bike for us to take out as well, which we're looking forward to. So if we look down at the screen, the way you adjust it is these very industrial aluminium knurled knobs, which you can rotate up or down, so the screen doesn't move that much really. The thing I always notice about these bikes is the clutch lever is always quite long, and the brake lever is always quite short on the right hand side. Okay, so you've got underneath this big silver flap here on the front, there's a power point for like a cigarette lighter size, so it's nothing like BMW. You have to buy a special DIN connection to fit it. For some bizarre reason they like to make them smaller. So that'll power vests and heated jackets and things like that. So I'm looking at the different modes that the bike has got on the menu while I'm riding along. It's got sport, street, rain and off-road, as you imagine. It is a KTM after all. It's set up in street at the moment, but what I'm going to do is see if I can switch it over into sport. Well, you have to close the throttle while you're doing that. Let's see what that does. Well, that changes it quite a bit. If you put it into sport mode, and you can do it on the road, which is on the run, which is quite good. I'm just going to go down through. It's in street. I'm going to put it into rain mode. It's in rain mode now. And there's a definite difference in how the bike rides. I'm going to put it back in sport again, as you would. So the pickup is quite awesome. There's a marked difference between rain and sport.
Here, let's talk about KTMs.
So what have you got, Mark?
I have got an awesome piece of kit. It is the KTM 1290 Super Adventure. Now that sounds a bit of a mouthful, but it is a mouthful of a bike. I've got to tell you, I really like this bike. It's the off-road version of the 1290s they've got at the moment. 21-inch front wheel, 18-inch rear wheel, so it is off-road biased. That said, this bike has got road tyres on it, because I think most people will use it on the road. But it's a really nice bike. Typical KTM, it's like all of them, it's a bit of a beast. When you start it up, it's got the TFT screen, standard everything really. Chain as opposed to a shaft. This bike comes fitted with engine bars, which are strikingly orange on this.
We'll go and have a look.
There you go.
They are good though, aren't they? The
They're
colour
really
scheme's
nice.
amazing.
Really nice. Lots of attention to detail, you know, shop covers and things like that. But it has a few things that I'm not really sure about. It looks really sexy from the front. It reminds me a bit of an ant, actually. Is that a good analogy?
Well, yeah, it is actually, yeah.
It's got this, obviously it's off-road biased, but it's got this pretty rubbish little screen here. You know, It's okay, you can adjust it one-handed and it's very clunky and good. But if you compare it to the other version of this bike, the 1290S, it's got a big touring screen, and that's where I think this bike is going to do most of it. Obviously people will take it off-road and do the stuff that everyone does with bikes, but I think most people will be touring with this. And so for that reason, to put a little crappy screen on it, I'm not really sure about. It does the job. It doesn't do the job perfectly. You still get a bit of buffeting on your shoulders, and I've got a peaked helmet which was just below the buffeting zone. But it's a KTM. It's a beast. Sounds fantastic when it started. On a previous video, or that on the other bike, Toby didn't get on with the mirrors so much. I didn't find the mirrors that bad. They were alright. Maybe it's just the different riding position, but I thought these mirrors were okay. Even though this is like the top of the range bike, you still don't get heated grips on it. Now, how weird is that?
Wow.
You know, 2018, come on fellas, put some heated grips on. It doesn't cost a lot, which I find a little bit frustrating. And something about this bike I did notice is it appears to have different sized levers on the clutch and the brake. I don't know if you noticed on the bike, which is it's a bit unnerving, first of all, because your little finger's like, well, hang on a minute, there's a little bit of it. I can easily get the 4 fingers on there, so different size, but it's probably biased because of the off-road.
Yeah, especially if they're standing up, it's a different angle and stuff, I suppose.
So, standard like the S, it's got a power socket here, underneath the dash. It's got an amazing TFT screen, and it's got the little pocket there for you to put your telephone in. And just like the other TFT screens that KTM are doing there, you can link your GPS through your phone and the KTM app on your phone, which costs about £7 or £8. If you've already got this screen, they'll retrofit it, download it. It's probably something to do with a little computery thing, which is way above my pay scale. And you can have your GPS on there. Now, we've discussed the GPS. It's a turn-by-turn thing. I personally like a map and don't necessarily want to have somebody weebling on in my ear. I'd sooner have music, but that's the way it is. And it's a lovely, lovely screen. It's keyless start. We've discussed the screen before. It's a great font, ready to race. Got to be KTM. Okay, so telling you there, the side stands down, the kill switch was on. It's got lots of information, all the information you need. Speedo, gears up in the top right hand corner, trip. It's only done 126 miles, this bike. It's amazing. Fuel range is 40 miles left on it. And if you use the buttons on the handlebars, just like the rest, let's split on my thumb there, bless me. They've got quick keys on them, which isn't set up on this, unfortunately, so you have to scroll through all the different settings for the bike. Yeah, if you want to change, if you want to listen to music off your phone, you have to go through this long-winded affair of scrolling through the menu to change the song if you wanted to change the order of tunes, which is a bit rubbish, really. You could probably find a better way of doing that, but you know, it's probably something they can work on. The seat isn't adjustable, and it is quite hard. I found it. It's quite narrow, which is what you would imagine. The bike is quite narrow, and it's obviously, I would say, not destined to carry pillions very often, because it's a big enough seat for a pillion. But if you compare it to the S version, that's got a dedicated seat if you want for a pillion. It doesn't have the the movable luggage. What, they got a name for it? I can't remember what it is though. You know that? Floating luggage, there you go. It doesn't have the floating luggage, it's rigid. The top box, standard KTM top box will go on the top. This is all metal. Some bikes like to use plastic, which just falls apart. So this is obviously destined to go places, you know, and travel. My issue about the luggage, we've discussed it on the other KTM bikes, is you've got a nice, probably 45 litre box on one side, and on the other side, where the exhaust is, here, you get this thing that's probably about 25 litres, because it has to be cut away for the exhaust, which is like pointless. Do something about lowering the exhaust, or just making something different. I don't know how they can do it, but you know, maybe the box has to come higher up or something like that. But if you're going away touring, you don't want to have just one box. You're going away touring for a reason. You're going away for a while, so you need a box so you can put stuff in. Makes sense, actually, in my small head. What are you laughing at?
What, your small head?
It's a bald head as well. On the On the plus side though, they've got this fantastic mud sling that goes in there, which will keep you clean while you're riding along, and I wish more manufacturers would do it. KTM typically put better mudguards on their bikes. They've got on the front, it's a longer one down so you don't get mud gets spewed up at the engine, but bearing in mind that what this bike is aimed at doing with its 21-inch front wheel, it's obviously, well, they want it to go off-road. It's got a garbage plastic belly pan, and I'm sure you can get an aluminium one that would be more expensive, but if I remember rightly, the old Adventure 990s used to have a fantastic belly pan on them. But if I'm wrong, I apologise, don't slag me off. Toby mentioned on another video on the S about the handguards. I think they're a bit flimsy on this, but you know, if you were going to be doing some serious off-roading, I think you'd have to put some proper bark busters on it. Other makes are available, probably not as good, but there you go. I like the bike, the colour scheme is fantastic. It's just a really, really nice bike. When you're riding, it's very throbby, very throbby, and I don't know whether that's because it's a hard seat. It's not got rubber on the foot pegs, but it does feel a bit vibey coming up through the engine, and maybe it's because it's not done so many miles, but it did feel like it was a little bit, oh, I need to, a bit stuttery, but well, you know, that might just be me being a half foot and can't ride it properly.
What was the quick shifter like? Quick
shifter's amazing.
It's buttery smooth. I forgot to, I said on the video on the S, but it's...
Can we just point to the S? It's over there.
It's there. It's as smooth as the BMW.
I wasn't sure it had a quick shifter at first. I was like, oh, I got me in the right speed. But the quick shift is very, very nice.
Both up and down.
Up and down, yeah. And it's pretty cool. I like the bike. I really do like the bike. I love the colours. I do wish they'd do a blue version of it, because I did like the KTM blue and orange. Toby's looking at me with a blank expression because he can't remember it, but you know.
Because I'm young. You're the old one, apparently.
Hey! LED lights throughout, front and back. We've got these fantastic LEDs here, and this bike has got something that people talk about. It's got a road presence, and you can see that when you're riding along. It's a big bike, and it's like you know, the BMW GS's. They have a road presence. Some bikes do, you know, and it matters. People will actually pay attention to it. If you're riding along the 125, you're not going to get so many looks. It's not about the looks, it's about actually people understanding that you're there. As with all motor manufacturers, they have the rubbish horn. There you go. Now people have made comments saying, well, I never use my horn. Well, it's not there to be angry with people with, but it's there to let people know that you're there. And if they can't hear it above their music in the car, there's not much point having it.
And we've had a couple of occasions that we've been nearly knocked off our bikes because people haven't been able to hear the horn, hence the fact that we put the sound bombs and stuff on.
Well, on the way here today, a bloke cut across a roundabout right in front of me. I'm talking about road presence. He just assumed I was not going round the roundabout to the junction I was coming off at, and he just pulled out in front of me. I didn't even use the horn because I was so incandescent with rage. But yeah, so it's got all the standard switchgear, and I think that's probably about it. All I can say about it, really. Lovely engine, lovely engine.
What a sound!
It's gorgeous. You can change the ride modes as you're going along on the screen. We've discussed the screen previously. It's really good, and I think this is the mark that other bike manufacturers have to step up to, because I really do like this. Again, let's thank JD Racing from Saltash for letting us have their bikes for today. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe, Toby's going to do some wizardry where he puts all stuff here. It tells you how many Newton meters it is, and it's 140, by the way. There's 160 brake horsepower. I knew he wanted me to get that in at some point. Give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next video.